This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Know-How is brought to you by CashFly.
On today's show,
you'll know how to ventilate your grow space.
Welcome to Know-How. It's the Twitch show where we build, bend, break, and upgrade. I'm Father Robert Ballas.
I'm Brian Burnett.
And for the next however many minutes it takes, we're going to be showing you some of the projects that we've been playing with so you can take them home and geek out on your own.
That's right. And there's nothing more important than ventilating your air.
Well,
no,
there are quite a few things that are more important than that, but that's where we are in our chapter of Grow How.
No, for today's episode, that's the most important thing.
Ventilate. Yes, absolutely. Now, we need to look at a couple of different technologies because we want to look at a way that we can exchange the air inside of our grow space, be it a grow tent, a grow room. And there are a couple of simple tips and tricks that people can follow in order to make sure that they buy the right equipment. Nothing is more expensive than buying something cheap 5 times.
Yeah, that's no fun. And I feel like this episode is particularly well timed for our move here to the new studio. Because some of this stuff we could use not just for our growing, but for our confined producer room.
Let's just say that when you put a lot of geeks in one place and close the door, it doesn't smell good.
Well, we've had to modify our testing area because we had the hole previously, a basement area. Every time I keep walking into the producer room, I smell solder smoke. I
don't know where that's coming from.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things is I'm trying to come into the office more often now, and that means that I'm going to be doing soldering. One of the later projects that we'll be creating is I'm actually building a workstation where that will be sucked out of the room.
Oh, is that what that giant tube is that you have? Or is that a Stargate?
That's a Stargate. No, I'm thinking about, I'm going to be using some ducting to pump it right above Alex.
Just go up through the rafters and back down?
Yeah.
Okay, that works.
Yeah, everyone likes the smell of solder.
Yeah, right? It wakes you up in the morning.
Indeed. But before we do that, hey, Brian, do you remember the little AeroGarden that we had?
Yes, I
That
do.
thing was fantastic, right?
It was amazing. The basil, I've never tasted fresh basil like that before.
I know, and the idea of being able to keep that next to your desktop relatively maintenance-free, because remember, we essentially left it alone for 6 weeks.
We used and abused that AeroGarden in the sense that we just neglected it. We didn't even touch it for 2 weeks.
Which is what we wanted. We wanted to see if there was a way to use some sort of off-the-shelf system to grow, and that absolutely worked. Now, there were limitations. Once you got to the top of the platform, you either had to transplant or you had to start trimming back.
Right, and if you neglect to do that, they hit the top of the light and start to burn.
They burn badly, right?
Yeah, poor little guys.
Yeah, I know. We did clone some of the basil from that experiment.
Ooh, well, I never saw the results from that.
Well, some of it died, but that wasn't our process.
Why do you look at me when you say something?
No, it was my fault. On the way home, I guess, when I loaded everything in the trunk, that container tipped sideways.
Oh, no.
And so I got home and had all fallen out of their cubes.
Because with the rock wool, we had to be careful because you didn't want to compress it too much, but it wasn't really the best way to hold
firm.
it.
Yeah.
Maybe
we'll
we
do
could
better
come up with something
next time. But I was thinking, I want to continue that experiment, but I think we've outgrown our little AeroGarden.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's only what, a 6-pod?
It's only a 6-pod. It's, it has enough water realistically, once you get all of the pods growing for like 3 days.
Oh yeah, it was amazing how
up water.
fast those plants started sucking up the water.
So don't you think it would be nice if maybe we had a system that was a bit more advanced, that held more water, more plants, maybe even had a way for us to find out exactly what was going on, when we needed to add water, when we needed to add nutrients, and perhaps even give us tips for how to best garden?
Nah, that sounds boring.
Yeah, okay, let's close it up. Thank you very much for joining. Oh, wait.
Does it have LEDs?
Yes,
it
does.
Put blinky lights in it?
Indeed, and this is it. So this is the AeroGarden Bounty Elite. We thought we would upgrade because we've enjoyed that little one so much. This is the big daddy. So AeroGarden, which is Miracle-Gro, they sent us this thing. I've been playing with it. That's why it's not packed so really well.
Is that why it's upside down?
It's kind of upside down, and
all right.
Let's get this thing out here. We're going to be setting this thing up. We're going to run it a little bit. I got this. It's a gourmet herb kit because you know what? The herbs. If you think back to the first AeroGarden we had, those were the ones that grew the best.
Yes.
Because the lettuce was just too big.
Yeah, and that wasn't something that I had thought of. Like, if you're going to be growing plants in this sort of system, you should probably do plants that grow at the same rate.
Yeah, because what happened was the lettuce,
overshadowed.
it threw shade on all the other plants, and they started to die because they couldn't get to the light.
Yeah, so that, I forget what herb or whatever it was, but it just didn't get enough light. It looked so sad.
Yeah.
It was like trying to crawl out to the side.
I mean, it was there. It was really trying, but it's like, why do you hate me?
But lettuce, lettuce just grows so fast.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do lettuce, you should just do the whole thing of lettuce.
Yeah. In fact, you know what? I would go one step further. I would say in a system like this, don't grow lettuce. Don't. Unless you like baby lettuce and you're planning on like harvesting very early.
Yeah.
Don't grow it because like in a 9-pot system, you could really only grow 2 heads of lettuce before it starts to overwhelm everything.
Well, could you do spinach in these or something?
Yeah, spinach
Okay,
would work.
spinach. I think I'd do spinach and then just buy lettuce at the store or something like that.
Well, let's get it set up. So if we look, this works very much like the smaller version. So this is super amped up. That's the LED panel. So whereas the other one was maybe this size and had
like
LEDs that were half as powerful, this thing is super powerful. And what I like about it is it
looks nice. It's got a stainless steel outside.
I like that.
It's got some vents on it.
Sexy. This is not the brains, but this is going to be my basin. So inside here, we've got our little pump, just like before, with a filter. So it's going to be able to take the nutrition fluid that we have in here, because remember, it's not just pure water. It's going to pump it up through here, and then that attaches to
right there.
This. So there's this little inlet here, and when water gets pumped up into that level, it's going to drip out of all 9 of these pod areas.
That's the cool part about this.
That's the cool part, yeah. And it works really, really well. Ideally, once we start it off, we should never have to take this off again. I like doing it because I like to see the roots. But
light's bad for the roots. So
there's a little corner right here that you just snap open, and it allows you to fill the tank without having to take it off.
That's smart. Because the other one, we had to like lift up.
Well, it had a little thing here,
did
but
it?
the problem is it was covered by lettuce.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, so there's that.
Grew pretty fast.
Now this is really the smarts. This has an LCD screen. It's a touch screen at the front that not only does it tell you when it's time to replace the nutrient solution, time to feed, time to water, but it's kind of like a game. It's a little bit of a gamification of growing. I like that. Anytime you can give people an incentive to grow right, that's cool.
Well, it's definitely easy to get it right the first time, so you don't have to replace your pods.
Right. Now, we did a first look of this early on, but I thought this might be the unit now that we have sitting in the back of the set.
You think so?
I think so, but I think now we need to properly take care of it. So we have to make sure that we trim, that we harvest the herbs as they grow up so that they don't start turning into like the savage garden.
All right, let's set this up right before we fly to Berlin.
Well, no, that's the experiment. The experiment is we're going to go away for a week. This thing should be good
for a week by itself. Especially
itself.
Since they'll be in the very early stages of growing.
They're germinating. They're not going to need that much water. Now give this another 2 or 3 weeks, and it'll be just like the other AeroGarden, where now we need to refill it every 2-3 days.
Yeah.
And remember that when we first started that initial AeroGarden, that first fill of water would have lasted 2 weeks. I mean, we drained it because we wanted to be responsible growers, but it could have gone on for a long time.
That's true. So in respect to the other AeroGarden, are there any major differences as far as like the system, or is it just like this is more of everything plus the really cool touchscreen?
Yeah, so it's the same sort of design. It's just bigger. It has much more light. This goes up way higher. Remember, one of the other problems we had with that initial AeroGarden
is the ceiling.
The ceiling. It got to the point where it wouldn't go up any higher, and unfortunately, that meant that any of the plants that came into contact with this would just die.
Right, and for the other AeroGarden, it's the perfect height. It's just that we neglected it.
We did.
And then had we let them grow any taller, that's when the basil started flowering.
Precisely.
So it makes sense.
But see, the other one went to about there. That was the maximum height. Actually, that's probably a little higher than what it would allow. This.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's awesome.
So, I mean, I can have a true harvest with this. I mean, I can let this thing keep growing and growing and growing until I get this.
That's awesome. So what are we going to grow? Just these herbs?
Just those herbs. So let me take this off really quickly because it's going to get in the way of the camera as we put these in. We're going to do this just like before, where we're going to have some water in here, and then we're just going to plug in our pods.
Man, I feel like we're underutilizing this one with just herbs. Like we should be doing a whole tomato plant or something.
Well, they did send me the grow yourself pod. So essentially, they look like that with the grow media, and you just put the seed that you want. Now, this is when it helps to have experience with growing, because it would be, you could germinate anything in here, but there's some plants that you really shouldn't do here, like pea pods would be horrible because there's nothing, they'd all grab onto this. You'd have one big stem of peas.
Start winding their way up,
Yeah, or again, lettuce would be bad, or like a squash, because one squash, it would just take up everything.
I've always wanted to grow pumpkins inside of my house.
You could probably do a pumpkin.
You could get them started and then plant them,
Precisely, and that's what we're eventually going to end up doing with this, because my idea is we are building custom hydroponic systems. It would be nice to start them off with this, a nice, easy way to have seedlings going as something else is germinating. Ideally, when you get serious about your garden, you don't just want to have plant, grow, harvest, plant, grow, harvest. You want to have plants in every one of those stages. So every time you clear a stage, there's something else that moves into it. Like for example, in my grow room, I have one tent for vegetation, I have one tent for flowering, and then I have a small tent for germination.
Right.
So anytime the flowering tent is done and I've harvested whatever vegetables I've got out of that thing, I can move everything from the vegetative tent into that tent and everything from the germination tent into the vegetative tent.
Okay.
So it's, it's a little cycle.
It's a rotating system. I like that.
And believe it or not, in a room the size of probably the radio corner, I've got those 3 tents. There's enough food being created in that to feed me.
The radio corner looks so tiny from that shot.
It's a little sad. A little bit sad. All right, so let's do this.
Padre, are we allowed? Can we grow some of these pods?
Oh,
pod
people.
You know, Padre, you've been acting a little strange
Padre.
lately. Oh no, it's all making sense. It makes too much sense.
All right, go ahead and open that up because we're going to have to do the same thing where we measure out our nutrients. Now, folks, remember the best way to grow plants, pour all the fertilizer in at once. They love that. Don't do that.
Yes, I've learned that. Because the more fertilizer you use, the faster they grow.
Absolutely.
Just like people.
In fact, and we're going to say this many times, always err on the side of caution. If you under-fertilize, you can fix it. If you over-fertilize, you're done. You've permanently hurt your plants.
I think the hardest part for me with this whole growing project that we've been doing was the patience.
Yeah.
And then remembering to do things.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. Oh, dang, I should have done something.
Exactly. But now I have a system. Like I've got my succulents and my bonsai right out on the front porch. And every morning I'll go out. I have a little spray bottle, moisten them, water them if I need to, pH balance some water if I need extra. And then like every evening I walk by them again. I'm like, oh, hey guys, like I'm going to help you out again. So once you get on like a pattern, on a schedule, it's easier to remember.
Now, because they're using the same formula, I figured out the measurements early on. I've already pH balanced this down to about 7. When I add the 8 milliliters of this, it should get it down to 6.8.
Okay, right, because you don't want to start at 6.8 and then it'll go down.
That would be bad. So folks, remember, you always want to be light. This is 8 milliliters. I'm actually going to put in like 5.
Right.
Just for giggles.
Just to reiterate, the reason we're being so cautious with this is that with a system that doesn't have soil, we have to be pretty exact.
Exactly. There's no buffer. So if you put in the wrong pH, if you put in the wrong amount of fertilizer, the plants get it. It's directly to the roots. Versus soil where, hey, you know what? It can absorb a little bit of bad pH. It can absorb a little bit of over-fertilizing. You do that with this in a hydroponic system, you're done. Just start over. Yeah, don't even try to fix it.
That's what made me so nervous when we were at a Maker Faire and we saw that the guy who had built out his whole hydroponic system, and we asked him like, have you ever made a mistake? Like, did you add too much of something? And he's like, yeah, I made a mistake once and it killed everything.
It does, and it kills it quickly too. So it's like instant feedback. It's like, oh, oops. Don't want to do that again. That was a bad thing.
I noticed you're using a Lagunitas growler. Is that? Yeah. Did you go for a visit? Did you get some beer?
No.
No. We just had one laying around.
Just happened to have one.
Yeah, that figures.
Yeah. It's twit. We drink a lot. We have a problem. All right, so I'm gonna put this in here. And what kind of pods do we got there, Brian?
All right, so judging from the outside of the box, actually I can just tell by looking at them, the smell of them now. No. We've got Genovese basil, Thai basil, chive, cilantro, dill, mint, curly parsley, and Italian parsley.
I love it. Okay.
I know you
Now
didn't know those existed.
we're going to be doing a full review on this, so I don't have to show you the screen. But this is like starting up any smart device. There's a EULA. There's the whole thingamaroll.
If your plants turn out to come back and kill you, it's not our fault.
But I mean, here I don't know if you can get a shot at. You probably don't have a camera that can get on that. But this is fantastic. And there goes the water. So it's already starting to do its little watering cycle. Yeah. No.
Oh, I thought it was my stomach.
No. But the cool thing is I can dial it in not just by time, but by kinds of plants. That's how precise the system is. I really, really like that thing. Yeah. Don't worry about it. We're going to be doing a full review on this. We just wanted to start it off. So let's do, let's see. Well, you do the Italian parsley.
Okay.
Ooh, mint. I like mint. Let's do mint here.
All right. Yeah, let's keep the parsleys near each other. I'm sure they'd like to hang out.
You know what? Basil on this side.
Basil over there.
Basil over here. The potty
Or
is
basil.
cilantro. You want the cilantro?
Yeah.
Take this. Oh, how about dill?
So I've got
dill.
cilantro, curly parsley, Italian parsley. I want to do the parsleys together here?
Chives, dill. Yeah, put the parsleys together.
Okay.
What do we got over here? We got Genovese basil. Oh, and Thai. Yeah, let's put all the basils over here.
I'm going to make sure that they all face the same
Dill.
way because that's my OCD right there.
Dill.
And then cilantro right in the back there.
Boom.
You know how much we love cilantro.
Yeah. Now remember, whenever we're dealing with seedlings, they don't
throw
have
things on the floor.
Well, they don't have a root system yet.
Right.
So it's very important to keep them in a humid environment because that's how they're going to be absorbing water.
We got our little domes.
These are supposed to snap on. They don't always snap on, but a little bit of loving force. You want to do those?
Yeah, sure. Just
Ones over here.
as long as they're covered. Yeah, they seem to fit on pretty well on this.
Yeah.
Cool.
And the other thing to remember about this is they don't actually need light at this point. They have no leaves.
No, it's not going to do anything.
The way that the growth cycle works is they're now detecting the water, and once that moisture gets to a critical point, they'll start sprouting. As soon as the leaves pop up, that's when it can use light. But always go for a more subdued light. You don't want full brightness light at the beginning because you'll just kill everything.
This probably has a system for that, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
We're at the very beginning stage, so very little lights.
Oh, you might want to look away.
Why? Is it going to... No. Oh, you're right.
Ah!
I thought
Look away, Brian!
I didn't think it was going to...
Seriously, look at this. Fire away. Oh, my gosh.
Jeez. Wow.
This is like Bender's shiny metal.
Wow.
There we go.
That is intense.
It is pretty intense. So, but the nice thing about this is when you tell it that you're planting new plants, it will actually tone down the light a bit. It'll make sure the light schedule is not going to hurt anything that you're growing.
Okay.
Yeah. I really like this. I actually bought one of these for my dad, and he loves the thing because he's got it on the kitchen table, and like they're not in Vegas right now. They're on vacation, but it's fine.
The only thing that and you can work around this, that it should have is like a webcam, so you can watch it growing from somewhere else. I mean, you could put
like a nest.
Yeah, a nest facing it, but it would be kind of neat if it was integrated.
Right? Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, hey, you know what? How about a system that is aquaponics or hydroponics and also let you log in so you could fine tune. You can go, you know what, those look a little dry. Let me up the water a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You could remote in and change the settings.
Just saying maybe one of us is already working on that, Brian.
Well, it's not this one of us, so must be the other one.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and take this one and put it off to the side. We're gonna have this plugged in the product area so that we can always watch our plants as they grow.
We have a product area?
Yeah, we do.
Now we do.
Well, I mean, I took it. It was the engineer's workbench. It's now ours.
Yeah, they don't need that.
They don't need it.
Is that right, Alex?
All right. So let's go ahead and move on because we need to talk about ventilation.
Right. That was the most important part of this show, was the ventilation we were talking about.
And actually, it is one of the more important parts of having an indoor grow. Now, outdoors, plants have access to everything. They've got the sun, they've got plenty of airflow, carbon dioxide that they need to grow.
Comes with bugs.
Comes with bugs, which
disease.
is why we wanted to move it inside. But we do need to simulate what it gets outside. Now, we've already handled the light. We know about light. We covered that on several episodes of Grow How. We've covered the water. We've covered nutrients. Now, we understand those parts.
It's everything.
But something that we haven't covered yet is the ventilation. We don't have that breeze. We are inside an enclosed area. And if you do not put some way to exchange the air with the outside air, what will happen is the carbon dioxide levels will get lower and lower and lower, and then your plants will literally suffocate.
Can't you just like stick your head in and breathe for a little bit? And
You'd have to live in there and breathe really hard to make that happen.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I've learned while we were doing this project too is that don't some plants need like the wind as resistance to help themselves grow?
And we're going to be talking about that because ventilation is not just about exchanging air, it's all about moving air constructively. And it actually takes some pretty good design to make it work right.
Cool, cool.
Now let's talk about the reasons why we need ventilation. We talked a little bit about imitating the outdoors, but there's a reason why we want to imitate the outdoors. First and foremost, carbon dioxide.
Right.
You need a decent amount of carbon dioxide for plants to be able to do photosynthesis, to create carbohydrate, sugars that they're going to use in the dark cycle.
Right.
You also want to do temperature control. Because remember, you're indoors, you're going to be under grow lights. Those grow lights, depending on what technology you're using,
They get hot.
they get crazy hot. I mean, I'm using LEDs,
Right.
which is perfect in San Francisco because the heat of the LEDs is just about covered by how cold it normally is in San
It
Francisco.
stays pretty cool in San Francisco.
Right, so
yeah.
I don't have to do anything exotic. But if I was using those high-intensity discharge lamps, like the metal hydride or the, what's the other one? I forget. The blue spectrum, the red spectrum lamps,
Yeah.
those things can be, 1,000+ degrees.
So you got to ventilate that, yeah.
You have to ventilate that because once a plant gets above about 85 to 90 degrees, it just shuts down. Yeah.
'Cause don't plants protect themselves too by evaporating some of the
They
water onto
do.
themselves?
So what will happen is the plants have these little stoma on the leaves. And as they get hotter, they will actually pull up more water from the roots and they will evaporate it out of those stoma. As you know, the way water evaporates is when you put enough heat into it to phase change. And when it phase changes, it actually takes some of that energy away.
That's pretty brilliant.
Well, that's perspiration.
Right.
This is the plant's sweating. It's what we do, but it's doing it in the inside of a plant,
That's
right? Inside
pretty
of
cool.
a leaf. The problem with that, though, is if the humidity gets too high or if the temperature gets too high, those stoma actually they close. It's a protective mechanism
Right.
because they don't want to have all the water of the plant leave through the
Right,
leaves.
right.
So again, once you get above that 90-degree area, that you just start seeing plants shut down. They just don't
They
grow.
start wilting and things like that?
Yeah, they're not very happy.
Okay.
The other part is humidity control because plants are going to naturally want somewhere between 50 and 70% humidity. It gets less as they get into the flowering stage.
Okay.
So early on, they like a lot of humidity, and then less and less. But if you get over about 80 or so percent relative humidity, again, those stoma would just close. There's not enough difference between the moisture that's evaporating off the leaf and the moisture inside of the grow area to make that work. Have you ever tried using a swamp cooler?
Yeah, like the one that we built on the show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It works really well in an environment like this where it's dry.
Right.
If you tried to do that in like a really wet area, it just won't work because there's already too much moisture in the air. It won't evaporate.
Okay.
So carbon dioxide, temperature, humidity. Something that you mentioned was the strengthening of your plants. Outside, your plants have a natural swaying motion as the breeze hits them.
Right.
That actually forces the stems to strengthen,
Right.
which is good. Unfortunately, inside of a grow area where you may not have any wind, you tend to grow very, very weak plants, and they will actually collapse under their own weight.
Wow. So it's like not getting any exercise or something.
Yeah, it's like me. So basically, you're growing me.
And soon you will collapse.
And then the last bit of ventilation is odor control. Again, depending on how you're growing, if you're doing all chemical nutrients, you could probably get away without a lot of odor control. I tend to like to grow a bit more organic,
Right.
which means using things like fish heads, and
So it's going to get pretty stinky.
it's going to get pretty stank. And you need to filter that out, especially if you're living with other people, because they start to complain and then they come down to your room and turn things off.
Yeah, and generally if you're going to be doing this sort of setup, you're probably in close proximity and limited space,
Right.
So
All right, so now we know why we're going to do it. Let's talk about how we're going to do it. And the first thing that we need to consider anytime we're doing anything with indoor growing is how big is your grow space.
Okay, so measure that out.
Measure that out. And it's super simple math. Take the length, multiply it by the width, multiply it by the height. That gives you your cubic feet. Okay. Because ventilation products, from the fans to the ducts to the carbon filters, they have a CFM rating. How many cubic feet per minute can you move through it?
Okay.
All right. So for example, this particular filter has a CFM rating of 440. At the maximum, with as much suction on this thing as I possibly can have, it will allow 440 cubic feet per minute of air to run through it.
Okay.
Right.
And if you try and do more than that,
it just won't.
It's restricted.
What happens is you just spin a fan faster and faster, but it won't come.
Okay.
Right, precisely. So for example, let's take the two different grow tents that we had. First of all, if you had a room that was say 10 by 10 by 8, you turn that into your room, you would multiply 10 by 10 by 8, and you get 800 cubic feet.
Right.
What about our grow tent? Our small grow tent was 30 inches by 18 inches by 36 inches. Remember that little one that we had on the set?
Little guy.
Well, that's 19,440 cubic inches. There are 1,728 cubic inches per cubic foot. So you would just divide 440 by 1728, and that means that that's 11.25 cubic feet.
Okay, so tiny.
Tiny, super tiny. The largest tents that I use inside my grow room, I have 48, so it's 4 feet by 4 feet by 80 inches. So I can actually walk into that thing. That's actually kind of nice. I like that.
4 feet by 4 feet by 80 inches?
Yeah, 48 inches, 48 inches by 80 inches.
Okay.
That's 184,320 cubic inches. Again, divide that by 1,728, and that gives us 106.7 cubic feet.
Oh, so this baby can handle that no problem.
Way no problem. But that's not it. We're going to talk a little bit about why we scale up the equipment and how we actually buy what we need for a particular space.
Okay.
Now, this is important because at the height of our grow, no matter what you might be growing, you have to assume that at some point you're going to want to exchange the air once every minute.
Exchange the air.
It means all the air in that tent needs to be
completely
pulled out
removed
and replaced once every minute.
Okay.
In some types of grows and some types of plants, you can get away with like once every 5 minutes, even once in every 10 minutes, but then you're really starting to cut back on the potential growth that you get.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do,
like suffocating?
It's suffocating, right? Or it's getting too hot or it's getting too humid. So what you want to do is you want to give your plant the best environment it can possibly have to grow. And then everything else is the work of the plant.
Right.
Yeah. You never want to have a plant stop growing because there was just not enough carbon dioxide in the air.
It's like being a good parent. You want to give it all the right tools to grow and then let it do its thing.
And then return them to Amazon when you're done.
Right.
Wait, no, did I say that? No, don't do that. That's dishonest. All right, so we're not done yet because we also need to tack on what's going to happen to that airflow. For example, I've got this bad mamma jamma. This is the typical type of what's called an inline fan. Whoa.
Hey, a flying saucer.
Yeah, look at that. This is a 6-inch inline fan. I think this one is a VTEC. Yeah, probably a VTEC. The idea is it's like a little squirrel cage. So that thing spins really, really fast. It's an impeller, and it will suck air from one side and blow air out the other.
Okay, like any fan, it just has a case around it?
Precisely, and I think let me see. Alex, if you go to the Ventec VT link down below, so this was an entire kit that I bought. Oh. This particular one will do 440 cubic feet per minute. Now, it sounds like this would be fine for, in fact, this would be fine for all 3 of my tents. If each of my tents is only about 100 cubic feet, this should be able to exhaust out of all 3. But no, that's not how it works. You see, every time you add ducting, every time you add something like this, which is going to restrict the airflow, you're going to reduce the amount of effective airflow you get.
Okay.
Right? You're just adding resistance.
Right.
And that's not good. I typically tack on 25%. And so
to give you overhead?
To give me overhead. So if I've got a 106 cubic foot, or let's call it a 100 cubic foot tent, I say I need at least a 125 cubic setup.
Right.
In order for me to actually get what I think I'm going to get.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
All right. Now, the other thing that we need to look at is what kind are you going to get? Because this is a 6-inch. I could buy 8-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch fans. The temptation is to get something super, super huge.
And then grow into it.
But the problem is I will never grow into that. And here's the other problem. If you could hold this up a tiny bit, just like that. Okay, and hey, Brian.
What? Oh, yeah.
Wait for it.
Whoa.
Wait for it.
Whoa.
Wait for it.
That's pretty loud.
That's really loud.
Sounds like a jet engine in there.
Yeah.
Here, you can hear.
Okay. Okay. Enough of that.
Let me point it right at my mic. Jeez, yeah, it does move air pretty well, though.
It does feel kind of nice right now.
It does.
Yeah. So know that it's going to make a lot of noise, which means we use something like this. This also came inside of the kit. It's a speed controller.
Oh, okay.
What this will do is it will just reduce the voltage that this fan is going to be getting, and it allows me to run it either full speed, low speed, mid speed, this allows me to buy a fan that's maybe a little bit larger than what I need, and then just run it at a slower speed.
Do they give you the ratio of how much air is being moved?
No.
Unfortunately,
speeds? No, I wish they did, but they don't give that kind of information. Hold on, let me turn this thing off. So if I plug this in, okay, variable. So I'm running mid right now. It's like Bob's Burgers. Oh, put nothing near it, that might get sucked in. So that's, it's still loud, but it's not nearly as loud as it was before. So before it was like this.
Yeah.
So what I like to do is I like to buy something that I can run at half speed. Because half speed is going to dramatically reduce the noise that I'm going to be getting from the system.
So you know that it tops out at what would you say, like
440 CFM.
Okay, so then half of that is what it would kind of be at half
It's
speed?
not linear, but it's probably like 180 CFM, which is still way more than I need for that tent.
Right.
But it's half as loud.
Okay. Have you tested smaller ones than this? Are they just as loud?
I do. No, remember, smaller fans are always louder.
Oh, that's right.
Because
they have to spin faster. Yeah.
You have to spin faster to get the same amount of air. So, I mean, I actually wanted to get an 8-inch. But here's the other caveat to that. So you can take a larger fan and run it at a lower speed, but it becomes very, very inefficient. They like running at their rated speed. So it's not going to kill it. It will slightly reduce the lifespan of the fan. But just know that you can't take like a 16-inch fan that moves 1,500 cubic feet per minute and then put it in a 10 cubic foot per minute tent running at 2%. That's a bad idea.
Okay. Makes sense.
The other thing is also consider extra capacity, because the ventilation is one of the primary ways that you're going to be able to control temperature and humidity in your tent. Remember, we talked about that.
Right.
If it gets too hot, increase the airflow. If it gets too humid, increase the airflow. If it's too dry and too cold, you go the other way.
What if it's dry and hot? Then you're just not watering your plants enough?
Yeah, basically, yeah. And also it might mean that you're running your lights during the hottest part of the day, and you switch your light schedule so that you have the lights off during, say, midday.
Right.
And always make sure that the ventilation ramps up as the tent gets hotter. There are actually controllers that will automatically control. So if they'll measure temperature and humidity, and as it goes up and down, it will ramp the fan speed up and down.
That's awesome. Automated, yeah.
Now, how does this all connect together? We're going to be doing a video that's going to show you a step-by-step. I've actually got a setup in our that big grow tent that we showed a few weeks ago.
Right.
But it's all going to be using this stuff.
Robot arm material.
Yeah. This was Max Trollbot.
Yeah, exactly.
It actually was Max Trollbot.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, we disassembled him.
We disassembled him, but for the greater good.
The greater good.
The grow how good. Sorry, Max. No, so all this is just aluminum ducting. It's the kind that you would buy at Home Depot. And you can get different types. So this is the super cheap stuff. There's also insulated because it can reduce the sound.
Oh,
because air rushing through this thing is actually pretty dang noisy.
Have you put like noise reducing foam around the fan at all before?
We're going to talk about that in a more advanced episode, but what I've done to really reduce the noise from this, I put it in an isolation box. Essentially, you suspend it inside of a plywood box with bungee cords.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because if it doesn't touch any solid surface, it doesn't transfer the vibration.
Yeah.
Right. You've done that with computer cases.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's the
with
same
like
idea.
Rubber grommets and things
Precisely,
like that.
exact same thing. You just give something that gives so that the vibration doesn't transfer.
Well, we would do that with the quadcopters and the cameras on them.
Precisely, exact same thing. So what this will do is I would take my fan, I would put the suction side onto the carbon filter. So it's sucking out of the tent, going into the inline fan, and then I would take this. So this is the outlet, and I would run this out of the grow room, because ideally I want the hot, humid, carbon dioxide weak air out of the grow room so that I get fresh air that's pulled in.
Where's your fresh air coming from?
Oh, just outside.
You just have like one window over here that's open and then one that's like used as an exhaust and push it out?
I mean, for a while, I was pulling the fresh air from the room next door, and the superior said, "You can't do that."
Was anyone in there?
Well, there was. It was an empty room, but I guess we had a guest, and he was complaining. He was like, there was like the sound of rushing air, and I didn't know where it was coming from because I had put the inlet under the bed.
Right.
So he's sitting. I didn't know there was anybody in there, but he's sitting there all night, and he's like, "What is that noise? I don't understand.
Am I losing my mind?"
So yeah, that wasn't guest friendly.
Okay.
Now we've used two different kits. This was the first one I bought. So this is the VTech, and Alex, if you go back there, relatively inexpensive. You can get one of these for between $120 all the way up to $160, depending on what you want included with it. The one I kind of fell in love with, and unfortunately it's not available right now, but we still have the link for it, is this G-Leaf. It's a little bit more expensive. So this was closer to like $150 to $190.
Okay.
But it moves more air, and it is way more quiet. Like a ridiculously amount of noise less than the VTech.
Okay.
But whatever kit you want, you're going to want to buy the controller, the ducting, and very important, the clamps. I've seen people just try to tape their ductwork.
No?
Don't.
Duct tape works for everything.
Don't do that.
We're literally using duct tape for ducting.
If you do that, I guarantee you at one point it will just peel off and you'll start spewing bad air everywhere.
Yeah, you'll just come home to a mess with all your plants being dead.
Dead. All dead.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to think, oh, I can always fix it. But remember, once, like since my tents are so full, I actually had a CO2 monitor, so I could find out how much CO2 was available to the plants. And I had my fans turned off during a power cut to our campus. And it was only off for 3 hours, and the CO2 levels dropped by like 90%.
Wow. What is the percentage of CO2 that would be best for the plants?
Well, there's a lot of theories on this because remember, plants are old or ancient.
Right.
And way back when, there was a lot more carbon dioxide in the air.
There's the algae, right?
Well, it was just in ancient Earth, in prehistoric Earth, there was a lot more carbon dioxide in the air.
Right.
So people think if you give them more carbon dioxide, it's better.
Faster. Yeah, it's like fertilizer.
And to a certain extent, that kind of works.
Okay.
But realistically, as long as it's atmospheric, so keep it the same as the atmosphere outside.
So they've evolved to that level, whatever the atmosphere is usually.
Like I did it because I like to get super geeky, but most plants aren't going to benefit from you pumping a lot of extra carbon dioxide inside the tent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
I'm still going to do that.
Worth a shot.
Yeah. All right. Now let's go on to something that's a little bit more important for those people who are doing, say, indoor grows inside of apartments.
Okay.
This is odor control. This was the last reason why we said we wanted to care about ventilation, right?
Right.
Okay. In order for us to do odor control, we have to control where the air is coming from and where it's going to.
Right, because it doesn't make it, if you're just circulating the air.
Doesn't really help.
In a closed container, it's not gonna help.
Not so great. But what we can do is we can create a negative pressure inside the tent so that any air that leaves the tent, which would have all those odors, will come through the way we want it to come through, which is through a carbon filter, through the inline fan, out to a vent that's going outside of the building.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Now, if we can do that, that's like 99% of our odor control, because carbon filters are unless you buy a horrible one, carbon filters are really good about scrubbing out odors. Okay. They actually attach to the molecules that carry scent and get rid of them. Now, there are a couple of other technologies. Some of the growers that I ran into, they use ozone generators, and what that does is it actually creates ozone. That's just an electrical process. You mix that with the air, and the ozone actually destroys those molecules. But that's fallen out of favor because you pump ozone into a building and people get headaches and die.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not good.
Oh man, that's not a bad trade-off.
It's not a
at
bad
all.
trade-off,
Yeah.
no. But I found carbon filters probably the least expensive and the least maintenance-prone item. All I have to do is remember to replace this probably once every two or 3 years.
They're dead simple.
Yeah, and this one is actually reversible, so I can swap the side and get another. So I could get 4 years out of this one device, and this is like $60.
That's right, because the previous episode when we talked about building one of these, you said that most of the air is going to be pulled closer to where the fan source
Right.
is.
It always goes to the area of least resistance, and
so
it's
if
not
you
at the
flip
bottom.
it, yeah.
You get a couple of extra years.
Cool.
I like to size my carbon filter to be appropriate for my tent. In this case, this one will do 440 CFM, but my tent being 100, I don't have to run it at full blast in order to get the effect.
Right.
Now, let's talk a little bit about intake fans, because we've been talking a lot about outtake. Or ventilation fans. I do use a fan to also draw air in, because I want to force cooler air in, because what will happen is if you just use the tent flaps, which we'll show you when we do the big setup, it's sucking in air from the room. I would much prefer that it's sucking air from outside.
Right, right.
So I use a smaller, much smaller, always use a smaller intake fan than your outlet fan. And for example, if this is 440 CFM, the fan that I'm using is 100 CFM. That's just pulling in air from the outside. It's still negative pressure in the tent, which means I'm still having control over where the airflow goes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Last bit.
What?
Even if you do all of these things and you get yourself a nice carbon filter and get yourself a really good ventilation system, if you make sure that you maintain negative pressure inside the tent, you could still get unwanted smells. Like, for example, my infamous potato experiment.
That's just because it is so powerful? Is that it?
No, that was because crap really stinks. Really.
Well, we have something here in Petaluma called the Sonoma Aroma.
Yeah.
And now that we're on the east side studio, which is closer to like a few farmland, you smell it.
On those warm summer days, you go, chickens.
I'm used to it, though.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And unfortunately, because I was in an enclosed room and I wasn't really ventilating properly, like that smell stuck to things.
Ooh, gross, gross. So
bad.
what do you do?
So I got this.
Ona?
This is Ona. Alex, I think we have a link for this. It's probably the best thing that I've found for doing like post-processing odor control. It does stick to the odors. It kind of takes them out of circulation, but it's really an odorizer.
Okay.
Here, and you want to smell this because
do I?
You do.
Whoa.
So it's a gel, right?
It jiggles.
It jiggles. So this is a gel. Wait. Oh, we're too bright.
It is pretty bright.
Here, let me do this. Brian's camera. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it does.
Oh. See it jiggle, Brian? See it jiggle? That's all the stink.
Ugh.
Ooh, okay.
It's like Jell-O.
But what I like about this is you can scoop it out and you
smells clean.
It does smell clean. I put it into this like a little plastic container that I 3D printed, and I put it inside the outlet hole.
Oh, so all the air going by will go through.
Well, it just goes right through this, and it totally worked. It killed that last like 2% of stink, and I put little bits and pieces, little bits of gel all around my room, and it did get rid of the crap smell.
Huh. So could you like smear this on things? Like, what if we just smeared it on this? Would that block the air from going through,
Yes.
or would it? Oh, okay.
Don't do that. Go ahead.
Is it toxic?
It's edible. Go ahead.
No.
No, totally.
It's
you can
not
eat that.
edible. I'm not eating it.
No, seriously. Hey, give some to Alex. He'll eat it. He say anything.
Alex, you want some?
I'm so hungry.
Yeah, have a bite.
It tastes delicious.
Nom.
My mouth is fresh now.
Now, the other thing I will say is, people who are doing very, very small grows, if you don't want to get into the ventilation fans and you do have an odor control problem, this actually works really well. If you go back to that link, Alex, this 1 gallon pail, it was $30. And I mean, look at this.
How long have you?
I've had this for 6 months, and that's how much I've used. You
And
really
you're
don't
a stinky
need a lot.
guy, so you need
I'm
a
a
lot of
smelly
it.
person. Yeah, look,
Wow.
that's almost near the top. I've used
I touch
maybe
it?
like an inch off the top here.
Ew,
It's gel. It's gel. It's Ona gel. Don't do
No. Wow, when it's that close to your nose, it smells very toxic.
Now they do have different smells. This is the non-odorized version. I figured out a process where I can mix this with e-liquids. So I mixed it with pina colada, and it smells kind of pleasant.
Not the kind of pina colada you would drink.
No, like the vaping pina colada, like the essential oil stuff.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. This is a super cheap way for you to do everything that we talked about with odor control, but without having to buy a lot of expensive ventilation equipment.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I could put this in Greg's room. My brother Greg's, that would help. He could use some of that.
Okay, last bit. I did promise that we were going to talk about strengthening your stems because we do want to simulate the nice breeze that plants will get outdoors.
Right.
Doing it with your hurricane fans, probably not the best thing to do.
Is that overkill?
That's crazy overkill, and it will actually kill the plants.
Literally overkill.
Literally overkill. Here's the fun part. When you blow wind at your plants, you want it to be strong enough to sway the stems, but not strong enough to burn them. Because what will happen is if you have like hurricane force winds going against your leaves, they will dry out.
Right.
That's how that works. That's how it happens.
Yeah.
So you actually want to take your fan and direct it away from the plants, not at the plants. And this is really hard for people to do because they don't see enough of an effect. Yeah. But I found that if you aim them towards the walls of the tent, it just creates an air current.
Yeah.
Because you don't need, the branches don't need to be doing this. They just need to they need to move every once in a while.
Okay.
It strengthens the cell wall. So I bought this. And if you go to the link for this one, Alex, this is a standard, this is a Lasco. Super inexpensive. It doesn't look like much, but I've had one of these things running for about 6 months now, and it works incredibly well.
Cool.
Yeah, and they're super quiet. And the nice thing is because they're spring loaded, so this has this little clip here, it will clip onto the support poles of your tent.
Thanks.
It will clip onto the support poles of your tent, and you don't need to build anything out. In fact, what I've done sometimes is I've clipped it onto planters, and then you just aim the fan away from the plant.
Okay.
And you're creating a little bit of a negative pressure, which will sway the plant without burning it out with wind.
Cool. Yeah, it's that seems to be the way to do it. That way you can move it around in case like you change your setup later.
Yeah. Oh, we will be doing an in-depth episode the next time we come back to Grow How, because I'm actually going to show you how we set up that grow tent. Last time we just set up the tent. We got it. We got the bones up, but we have to install all the ventilation. We have to install all the lighting, all the little accoutrements that you're going to need to have a viable grow tent. And we're going to have a bunch of these just to make sure that the air circulates around. Cool. One of the things that I found, and this is from personal experience because I screwed up at the beginning when I started practicing for Grow How, is you don't want to get to a point where you're ordering equipment because the plants now need something.
Right, because then you have to wait, and then the plants are just suffering.
They're just dying. They're just suffering. Right. So that's why we're giving you all this information in advance, and this is why we're doing it in this order, so that you can decide how big of a grow you want, and you can decide how much you're going to invest into it. All the gear that we showed you today, you could buy a super high-end ventilation system, all the fans that you need for this, and the Ona gel for about $200. And that's a pretty involved grow. And it goes down for there. If you want a smaller fan, if you don't need a carbon filter, if you just want to use smaller amounts of gel, you could probably do proper ventilation for about $60.
All right, not bad.
Yeah, not really a reason not to do it. Yeah. Now, we know that this was a lot of information.
It was a lot of knowledge.
And we actually do have very super copious notes that you're going to find at our show note page. Where do they get those, Brian?
That's right. You can find them at twit.tv/KH. And not only will you find the notes, but you'll find previous episodes, which obviously is going to be handy in this sort of situation where we're doing multiple episodes. And, if you do go to the show page, there's I take pride in the screenshots that I pick for each episode.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that.
That was a nightmare fuel episode. But if you go to the site, you can download it and also subscribe.
Yeah, and there we've got links to all the different products that we showed you, all the different kits. And again, seriously, this time the notes are really copious. So
why do you keep insisting on that?
Well, because people are like, I don't understand what you're doing. I'm like, okay, well, I'm scripting out everything this time.
I thought you were saying like, oh, maybe Brian hasn't been putting stuff in the notes.
No, you're cool, bro. Found it. There you go. Okay.
Well, Lawrence does the Monday episodes, so I need to work with him.
His grow how is weak. His grow foo.
Just
Sorry,
grow
Lawrence.
foo.
Yeah. Also, don't forget that you can find us on Google+. Just go to Google+, look for Know How. There is an approval process just to keep out all the cam girls and the spam accounts. But once you get in, it's over 10,000 Kitas. That's what we call our fans, the know-it-alls. These are the people who do these sorts of projects on a daily basis. You're going to find everyone from those who are just starting out in the DIY maker world to those who have been doing it all their lives. And yes, it is a free exchange of information. Beyond anything, that's what we want. We want Know How to be a place where people gather to get good ideas, to get help with projects, and to share the knowledge that they've built up over years. So please, again, go to Google+, look for Know How, and join us.
That's right. But if you wanted to follow what we're doing when we're not doing Know How, you can find us on Twitter. I'm at cranky_hippo.
And you're going to find me at PadreSJ. And we do have a third, I'd say, honored member.
Honored?
Yeah. Well, I mean, who else would we put at the con?
Yeah, at the controls.
At the controls. It's our director, Mr.
He's right over here. He's
James.
Hi, Brian.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, let's shake some hands here.
Billy. His name, Billy. Billy Gummy. Gum.
Excuse me, Padre, it's pronounced Alex Gumpel.
Right,
No,
that's what it was.
I would have remembered that. Never mind. But you're going to find him on Twitter at twitter.com/ANELF3. That's ANELF3. Until next time, I'm Father Robert Ballas, sir.
And I'm Brian Burnett.
And now that you grow how,
Go deodorize it.